Welcome to South Sudan Diversity. My name is Tito.
It is now my pleasure to welcome His Excellency Mr. Hakainde Hichilema, President of the Republic of Zambia. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, Mr. Abdel Sisi, President of the Republic of Egypt, Arab Republic of Egypt, Your Excellencies, fellow heads of state and government, United Nations Secretary General, Your Excellency, Mr. Simon Steele, Executive Secretary of the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, first, it's our duty to congratulate the Egyptian President, President Sisi, for hosting this COP27 conference, and also to thank the Egyptian people for your warm hospitality since we arrived here. President, distinguished delegates, with the African continent being host to this COP27 on a continent which is most affected by climate change, obviously together with other least developed countries, and it's befitting to call this the African yet global COP27. Because it is opportune for us to say things that we probably have not said before. Now that the conference COP27 is happening on our continent, a continent that is bearing quite a lot of the brunt of the climate change, yet it contributes the least to climate damage, we expect that this COP27 will address some of our key issues that are arising from the climate change negative effect. Mr. President, distinguished delegates, our government's home in Zambia has demonstrated a marked commitment to combat climate change in line with the requirements of the Paris Agreement. However, in order for us to be able to maximize on our contributions to ameliorating the negative effects of climate change, and yet at the same time meeting our people's minimum requirements to maintain their livelihoods, we need strong and enduring international partnership and support which deliver on its commitments. I think the key word here is to deliver on our commitments, the commitments of us, of course, the commitments of our partners. As chair of the African Group of Negotiators, Zambia has submitted an ambitious, revised and updated nationally determined contribution as required by the Paris Agreement. Mr. President, distinguished delegates, climate change adaptation remains a top priority for all of us without exception. Therefore, we expect that COP27 will deliver a milestone outcome in advancing the work program of the global goal on adaptation that we adopted in COP26 last year in Glasgow. Mr. President, distinguished delegates, while we continue to urge for the world to increase its commitment and, more importantly, delivery towards climate change, Zambia will continue to do what it's able to do in its own right, given its resource constraints. We have identified a number of mitigation actions as a means of attaining our aspirations and increasing our commitment. We continue to formulate green growth strategies which will provide a framework for transforming the country into a climate-smart green economy. Mr. President, distinguished delegates, we call on all our esteemed partners to fulfill their pledge of $100 billion per year of funding for us all to meet our intended goals around this challenge, climate change. This is a very important motivation for us all to continue with our climate change mitigation efforts, in addition to, honestly speaking, to making this contribution, commitment, obligation met as a measure of credibility. If we don't meet our commitments, we make the various commitments, we don't meet them, obviously our credibility as individual countries, but also as a group of nations, a League of Nations, global League of Nations, is at question. And I believe that we'll address this issue after this COP27. We have an obligation and a noble task to deliver for the future generations, for our planet, especially that we are meeting here once more on the African continent. As we conclude, Mr. President, fellow delegates, there are times when we as individual countries have a decision to support or not to support certain commitments. In this particular case, I'm afraid to say that option to decide not to does not exist, is not available to any one of us. It is important, therefore, for us to accept and understand that a crisis like this one should not divide us, should not move us away from each other. It does not matter what discussions we're having individually in our countries. It does not matter what issues face us as regions, as continents, but also as a global community. We have an obligation to work together and cooperate even more than ever before. And this way is the most assured way of defeating the negative effects of climate change. As I said, let us come out of this COP27 more united and work together in many spheres, including joint investments, trading, making carbon trading as is possible. And we shouldn't leave the ascension steps to carbon trading, for example, to individual states. Let's work out a template on how to engage in carbon trade much easier, including working on the regulations that affect this important revenue-based activity, which will help us ameliorate the negative effects of climate change. Mr. President, distinguished guests, a lot has been said. I choose to say these few words and ask all of us to rededicate our efforts and, more important, accelerate implementation of mitigation factors. All of us, without exception. I thank you for your kindest attention. Merci beaucoup.
I thank you, Your Excellency, for your statement.
Thanks for watching. Please feel free to suggest any topics to be covered by South Sudan Diversity, and remember to subscribe if you like what you see.